I think a lot of people forget an important part of Jesus' answer to the question, what is the greatest commandment? It's pretty common to remember the second half of Jesus' answer, to summarize that as love God and love your neighbor. But most people forget the very first part of Jesus' answer. And that's what we're going to be looking at today. And we're going to use some in-depth Bible study tools to do that. So we're going to use cross-referencing to look back at the Old Testament passage Jesus is quoting. And we're even going to use original language tools, looking at the Old Testament passage in Hebrew. My name is Josh, and this is Understanding the Bible. And my goal here on this channel is to help you understand the Bible better, what it says and what it means. And I don't want to tell you how to understand it. I want to help give you the tools to do that for yourself. So let's dive in and get started with this Bible study. So here we are in Mark chapter 12, looking at Jesus answering the question, what is the greatest commandment? In my previous video, we went through the context that where Jesus is in the temple and all the questions that were being asked to him and the scribe coming up. So if you haven't seen that, be sure to check that out. But here we are moving on from verse 28 down into verse 29. And here we're going to see Jesus answering. And so it starts off, Jesus answered, the most important is, and now he's going to say the answer. But look, he doesn't jump into love the Lord your God right this second. He says, the most important is, hear, O Israel. This is pretty overlooked. When's the last time you heard somebody answer this question of the greatest commandment by saying, let's start with, hear, O Israel. So, hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. So this little section is what we're going to be looking at today, and we're going to be seeing why Jesus said it and what it means. To do that, we're going to use two different Bible study tools that are really helpful. The first is using cross-references. We have these little notes right here, and these are cross-reference notes. So some type of notes are footnotes that'll give you a note from the editor, and the other ones are cross-references, sending you to other Bible passages. So let's go ahead and click on this and see what it says. There's two cross-references here. The first is Luke 10:27. And this you can see is cross-referencing where Jesus says the same thing over in Luke. So it's just a parallel passage. But this one is what we're looking at. This is Deuteronomy 6:4-5. So this passage is going to be in the Old Testament. And look what it says just here in English. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. You shall love the Lord your God with all. And we'll have to click on the passage to see. But look at that. We've got Jesus is quoting an Old Testament passage. So the first takeaway I want to point out about this is that Jesus really is answering the question, what is the greatest commandment? He is quoting a commandment from the Old Testament. So this is the context here that Jesus is referring back to the Old Testament to answer that question. So why don't we jump on over to the Old Testament and see what that looks like. So here we go. We're going to click on this note again, and we're going to go ahead and click on the link to go over there. So now we're in Deuteronomy 6:4-5, but that can be a little bit, that doesn't give us any context. So I'm going to jump out all the way and look at the whole chapter, Deuteronomy chapter 6. Look at this. This section is actually called wasn't in the original text, but the Bible here, the ESV, has labeled this section the greatest commandment. Hear therefore, O Israel, and be careful to do them. So this is talking about the law, which has just been given. So there's been a lot of law. Now this is a summary section telling Israel, the people of Israel, to hear and do, that it may go well with you, and that you may multiply greatly, as the Lord, the God of your fathers, has promised you in the land flowing with milk and honey. So the context here is the law has been given to Israel. And there's a promise that when you follow those laws, it's going to be rewarding to you. And this is right as the people of Israel go into the promised land. All right. And now we're in verse 4, the one Jesus is quoting. We're looking at it in English, and it may be a little perplexing. What exactly is the importance of this? Hear, O Israel, why is that important? The Lord our God, the Lord is one. It's kind of a weird thing to hang the greatest commandment on. In fact, this doesn't even sound like a commandment. Maybe hearing is the commandment. So it's a little unclear in English why this is so important. And that's why we're going to jump on over to the Hebrew. This is known as the Shema, and that is a part of the Old Testament that's used in Jewish daily prayer. And so this is recited twice daily. It's that important. The first thing to know about Hebrew is that unlike English and Greek, it reads from right to left. So books are kind of backwards. You start in the back, and on the page you read the wrong direction to us. And so the first word in the sentence is right here. It's this word. And this word in Hebrew, if you can't read the alphabet, don't worry. This is in our alphabet here, is the Shema. So the first word is Shema. This is a critical word that does not totally translate into English. So the word Shema quite literally means to hear. But in English, hearing is primarily about something that happens in your ears. So it's that a sound comes to your ear, and then maybe it makes it to your brain. In Hebrew, they do not have a word that means obey. So if a parent is telling their kid, hey, you need to obey me, they actually use this word, Shema. You need to hear me. So in Hebrew, the word obey and the word hear are interchangeable, and they're the same way. When somebody wants to say, you need to obey this, they say, you need to hear this. Because Shema doesn't just mean to hear with our ears, it means to hear and to receive, to hear and to do. So this is a powerful word that is saying something that is a combination of hear and obey. So let's take a look at that again. So it is saying, listen and obey, hear and obey. And what are they hearing? They're hearing the law. They're hearing the law that has just come by, and they're hearing this next sentence. So it's a combination of those two things, I think. So hear, O Israel. It doesn't say O in Hebrew, it just says hear, Israel. Yahweh, and we translate that the Lord, that's the personal name for God. So it's the name that was revealed to Moses at the burning bush. And so it's saying, hear, O Israel, Yahweh, our God, and this is Eloheinu. And so this is the more generic word for God. And so this is the kind of word that if they were talking about other gods, they would use this El word for God, Elohim, Eloheinu in this case. And so it's saying that Yahweh, God, Yahweh, the Lord, is one. So what this is getting at here is it's identifying what God Israel serves, and that's the specific God Yahweh, the God who created the earth, the God who was the God of Abraham and Isaac, the God who is giving them the law, the God who called them as a people, the people of Israel. They're saying God is one. This is in contrast with the people of the land they're moving into. They have many gods. They have different gods that they worship, but the people of Israel, they worship one God, and in this there is an identity that this one God is the one true God, the only God. So let's jump back over to Jesus in the New Testament, and then try to put what we've learned here together. Jesus answered, the most important is, hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. So there's a few things we can learn from what we've just studied. The first is that Jesus is not talking about just any God. He's talking about the specific God of Israel. That's why he quotes this passage, and that's why he uses, hear, O Israel. We're not serving a generic God. We're not just serving one of many gods. We're serving a unique God, the specific God of Israel. The greatest commandment is the commandment that comes from the God of Israel. And if we forget as believers our heritage in the Old Testament, our heritage from the people of Israel, God's people, we're forgetting what Jesus is saying is truly important. Second, when Jesus is saying, hear, O Israel, using that reference to Shema, Jesus is talking about hearing and doing. It's important that we don't just hear the words, but that we put them into practice. And then lastly, let's not forget this idea that the Lord our God is one. When we talk about loving God, we're going to talk about the different ways that we do that. But one of the central ways, the whole premise of the people of Israel and the whole premise of Jesus answering to this question is that we worship God alone. I know that in Congress, for example, it may be something where they will pray to multiple gods at once. And that may be something that they do in politics, but that is not, according to Jesus, how we are to live as Christians. The call of the Bible is that God is one, that there is one God, and that unique God is who we pray to, who we love, and who we serve. So that's Jesus' answer. I hope it brings a little bit of clarity to this passage, that it makes more sense now and it's easier to understand having looked at it. If this was helpful to you, could you do me a big favor? Could you please hit that like button? That's really helpful from a YouTube point of view. And I'm looking forward to the next video coming out in this series. So if you're not already subscribed, if you want to keep looking at this more as we get into Jesus saying, love the Lord your God with all of your heart, then please hit subscribe, turn on notifications. It's a great way to stay involved. Thank you so much. And I've enjoyed looking at this passage together with you as we seek to understand God's Word together.